So I'm going to start with a soup kettle and a couple of tablespoons of olive oil from the Greenbay Olive Oil Company. Now, I don't know if I've, ever made chicken soup that doesn't start with onions, carrots, and celery. It's kind of like a must when you're making chicken soup. So I'm going to get that olive oil warmed up a little bit in my soup kettle. And I'm going to add about 1 cup of each. I never, measure out when I'm making soup the exact amount of onions, celery, and carrots, but I usually do about 1 medium-sized onion. I'm going to do a little bit of a finer dice on this, but that's totally up to you if you want a little bit more hearty. But I definitely want to keep the vegetables about the same size. So notice they're all about the same size. But some people like, depending on the type of soup you're making, sometimes you want a more substantial pieces of celery, onion, and carrot. This one is a little bit more delicate of a soup, I guess. A little bit more refined. So we went for a little bit of a finer dice, but that's totally up to you. A shortcut, and I'm all about shortcuts. We've got a couple of them going on for this recipe to make the soup come together in about 30 minutes or less. Because you know me, that's the way I roll. If it's not quick and easy, most days I'm not doing it. I know there are days where you just want to stay in your pajamas or your sweatpants and cook all day long, but most days we just don't have the time. So one of the shortcuts is there's an entire section of your grocery store that has chopped onions, chopped celery, chopped carrots. They're already done for you. You can also buy them frozen in a bag. So if you don't have the energy to chop up vegetables, I'm still going to love you. Hey, you're cooking. I'm all about shortcuts. So what's real important with soups is season as you go. So I'm going to do a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper to season those vegetables. And I've got some fresh garlic. Jarred garlic is just fine too, and even a garlic powder would work. So fresh garlic, these are really big cloves. I'm going to go anywhere from 3 to 4 cloves of garlic. I think 3 will do it. Whether you put them in your garlic press or I'm just going to use the back of my knife, well, what the heck. Garlic's good for you if you're under the weather. Just going to chop it up a little bit. Doesn't have to be perfectly chopped. This is one of those recipes that you don't really need to have it. When you're putting garlic in a soup, it's going to really cook down, so there's no fear of somebody getting a giant piece of garlic. Unlike like a pasta dish, which, you'd really want it probably a little bit more finely diced. But it's got time to cook and mellow out in this soup, so it doesn't have to be a perfect mince. Okay, in that goes. And with garlic, you know the rule. About 30 seconds, I'm going to do a touch more olive oil. We love the oils and vinegars from Greenbay Olive Oil Company. About 30 seconds, and then we need to start adding the rest of the ingredients. We just don't want to burn that fresh garlic and ruin the whole batch of soup. Okay. So now we're going to turn up the heat, and I'm going to add some chicken stock. It really depends on how brothy you want this soup. I do about 8 cups of chicken stock, so about 2 boxes. If you make your own chicken stock, hats off to you. I love you. But the box stuff really has come a long way. I always look at the back of the box and see, what's all in it. And if it says like, chicken and not a lot of stuff, then that's a good stock. If it's got a bunch of ingredients that you have no idea what they are, probably best to skip that one. So I'm going to add my chicken stock. I've always got extra I can add at the end. Then to pump up the flavor, I do really like, and I always have this in my fridge. Once you open a new jar, you keep it in your fridge. This is basically, we grew up with the bouillon cubes, right? And then it went to the bouillon granules. I love a good chicken soup base. I always have in my fridge beef soup base and chicken soup base, so that if I'm making a stew or a pot roast and the gravy just needs some more beefy flavor, in this case we're going to add a little chicken flavor, it's this really great way to bring up the chicken flavor in your soup. I do about a tablespoon. It can be a little salty, but this is, made with roasted chicken. So much better flavor and better ingredients than those bouillon cubes we grew up with. So about a tablespoon, and then this would go back in the fridge. I'm going to do 1 bay leaf and we can fish that out later. You don't want to go overboard on the bay leaf, because that can kind of overtake. I mentioned shortcuts. So this is a Lemony chicken rice soup. So the shortcuts are rotisserie chicken that I just shredded up. You can even buy at a lot of grocery stores pre-shredded rotisserie chicken. So when they've got extra rotisserie chickens at a lot of the grocery stores that do rotisserie chickens, they just shred them up and sell them in a package. What a lifesaver. Or if you're making chicken, make a few extra pieces and just shred it up yourself. So this is a great, like whenever we're making chicken, I make extra so that I can do a soup or something like that later in the week. As far as the rice goes, again, we actually made rice for dinner last night. Make some extra and use it to use in the soup. Another shortcuts, those rice in the pouches that you put in the microwave, those are a lifesaver. And I'm using white rice. Brown rice would also work, wild rice or a blend. So I've got about 3 cups of rice, 3 cups of shredded chicken. And literally, when this comes to a simmer and the veggies are tender, our soup is done. So far you're like, well, it kind of looks like this chicken soup I grew up with. There's really not a lot different, Amy. I am going to do a little bit of water, and I can always add more water at the end. I think one of the ways chicken soup can go wrong is it's too watery, and it's not enough of chicken flavor. So that's why I love that chicken soup base. And the color, do you see the color of this? It really is a bright yellow. And that chicken soup base adds so much flavor and richness and color. All right, so here are my additions that I'm going to add toward the end. So at home, let this simmer for about 5-10 minutes, putting the chicken and the rice in toward the end. We don't want to overcook the rice and have it, turn mushy. So our additions, it's a Lemony chicken rice soup. So we're going to add a good amount of fresh lemon juice at the end. Fresh is a definite must for this. If you've ever had that Greek chicken soup, it's really lemony. This is just going to brighten the flavor. It's not going to be like a lemon overload or anything like that. That was a nice juicy lemon. I think that half will do it. Sometimes you just don't get a lot of juice from them. And you can adjust the taste. If you want a little more lemon, add a little bit more. Now this is something different, and you want to do this at the very end. This is fresh dill. And mom, probably mom always put dried parsley at the end in chicken soup. My mom is known for her really delicious homemade chicken noodle soup, but she's a chicken soup gal. She absolutely loves it. But instead of dried parsley or chopped fresh parsley, we're going to add some fresh chopped dill just at the end. Talk about a way to brighten it up. And one more ingredient we're going to add, and this is something really unique and optional, you don't have to add it, is about 1/4 to 1/3 cup. This is just grated Parmesan cheese. And if you've ever been to an Italian restaurant and they do some sort of a chicken soup, you may notice that it's a little richer, or maybe they'll serve Parmesan cheese with it. We didn't need a whole ton. It is optional. You can leave it out. But again, it's just going to add that other layer of flavor. At the very end, we're going to add our fresh dill, and chicken and dill go so well together. Look at how gorgeous this is. The color of this is just a real wow factor. This is going to make everything better. Fish out that bay leaf before serving. Just discard that. And this with crackers or some nice crusty bread, this is one heck of a hug at the end of a long, cold day. And it's a great way to take your ordinary chicken soup, chicken noodle soup. You could do the same recipe with your chicken noodle soup recipe, adding some fresh dill and lemon and maybe some Parmesan at the end. And it's fun. I did this with chicken rice, a little more dill because we had some. But those little fun different pasta shapes, like the diddolini or maybe the little pasta shells. There's so many fun little tiny pasta. That would be great in place of the rice.